I'm really pleased to finish our presentations this evening with Dr. Jessica Western. Whenever we have cool presentations with pictures and the legal pieces, now there's an opportunity to think to have community input. And what does it mean to welcome a project like this into your community? So we've heard about some of the economics, some of the social, some of the political aspects, and certainly the geological aspects. And now we're going to be looking at the concept of the role of social license, specifically in the context of carbon capture and communities. Jessica Western is a senior research scientist in human dimensions and natural resources and director of the collaboration program in natural resources at the Ruckelshaus Institute at the University of Wyoming. As director of the collaboration program, she provides collaborative leadership training and assesses, designs, and facilitates collaborative public processes. Dr. Western is also a peer-reviewed social psychologist and has published research regarding the relationship between people and natural resources in relation to issues such as energy, forests, and wildlife. She teaches natural resource policy in relation to the United States and the European Union, and I believe she had a terrific trip to the Canary Islands with a group of students. So for those of you who are students in the audience, think about transferring and going into work with the Hobbs School at the University. Not minus 30. Please help me welcome Jessica Western.
Good evening, everyone. So I have to tell you, I'm learning right along with you about all of this stuff. This is the first time I've heard all of this. So these guys are going to keep me straight. But what I will say, I don't know how you're feeling about all this right now, but I have to say I'm feeling pretty darn proud about this university. I'm feeling very proud about the School of Energy Resources, and I say we help these guys get through phase 4. Okay, however, so this is complex, it's new. If it's successful here in Wyoming and Gillette, it's going to put Gillette on the map. I mean, it's already massively on the map worldwide, but even more so as being progressive with technology, people working together, willing to take risks. It would be enormous. But this is your community. It's happening in your community. You live here. You raise your children here. So let's put it in that context just for a minute here. So in the Ruckelshaus Institute, where I work, which is part of the Haupt School of Environment and Natural Resources, we try to find ways to provide information about complex questions in relation to natural resources. And we also try to help people work together to find solutions to complex questions. And one of the things that we've been working on is how to enhance the capacity for collaboration in the energy sector. So we've been doing a lot of work on this, and part of what drives us is what Patty Limerick said. The boom of activity in the planet's underworld has brought to the surface not only an abundance of hydrocarbons, but a deep reservoir of buried political and social tension. So you all know this is true, and over time we're finding a lot of solutions. This is a conversation that is going to continue. So one way of thinking about bringing in a wonderful, new, potentially very community-enhancing process like carbon capture and storage is one of the things to think about is to get the social license to operate. So these gentlemen have been sharing with you all their information about this technology and how they're going to go about it, how they are going about it right now, what the possible future of it could be. They've talked about the risks related to it, the complexity of the technology, the unknowns. And so what does this mean for you? For a community to be comfortable with these new kinds of projects, it's really helpful if entities try to obtain a social license to operate. And what we mean by that is a society or a local community's acceptance or approval of a firm's activities or operations. So part of that process is to make sure that there's legitimacy to this process. It's for real. There's an increasing level of safety, and there's not going to be rejection by a community out of hand. Then there's an increase of credibility, which increases acceptance as well. Eventually, this can lead to approval and to trust, which, for example, we have a lot of trust in relation to coal mining in Gillette. And there's a lot of psychological identification with it, too. It's part of our culture. That's a social license to operate. So ingredients to this are trust. It's also transparency. And Kip and Scott and Fred are doing their darndest to be very transparent tonight. Inclusion. Keep everybody who can affect an outcome and everybody who can be affected by an outcome should be included in this kind of a conversation. It requires ongoing communication and engagement. It means broadening decision-making procedures, establishment of community, environmental, and stewardship agreements, and accountability between corporations and other entities and communities. So what is the link between social license and collaboration? Basically, collaboration is the approach one takes to obtain social license. So I am right now working on collaboration projects all over Wyoming. Some of the exciting ones are in relation to the Whiskey Mountain Bighorn sheep herd. That sheep herd is in trouble, and Game and Fish has asked me to work with them to initiate a collaboration process around that sheep herd. So if you're interested in that, come to the meetings in Du Bois. But we're also working on other projects. We're looking at the science in relation to bighorn sheep. We're going to be looking at chronic wasting disease. There's all kinds of collaboration projects happening all over Wyoming. But collaboration is the means for gaining that social license. And I want to use the example of something recently. Yeah. So one community did a good job of getting a social license to operate, and one didn't, right? So New York City, so I've been reading a lot of articles in preparation for this talk, and if I'm getting it right, and I may not be, but my understanding of the situation is that Mayor de Blasio told Amazon, you know what, if you want to get the social license from these local communities, you ought to go do this, 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 and this. And Amazon didn't do a very good job of that, and they weren't able to get the social license to operate. So they left. On the other hand, in Virginia, what the mayors, the county commissioners, everyone who was involved, they had a collaborative process right off the bat to talk about, okay, what do we need to talk about in order to obtain social license to operate? What's important to us here in Virginia? And what's important to Amazon? What does Amazon need? So what they did is they had an interest-based negotiation. They looked at the interests that all the different stakeholders have and tried to find ways to meet as many of those interests as possible. So what did they wind up doing? Where New York City was going to, basically, it looked more or less like a financial deal, $3 billion at the front end, $27 billion or something in the long run, 25,000 jobs. Virginia got far more sophisticated, went far more into the details, and there, the number that I read was $500 million with an assurance that they were going to make sure that there was a pipeline of trained staff and personnel for the long run for Amazon. So that meant investing in education and probably a number of other issues too. So this way it's not just about the 25,000 jobs, it's about the long run, it's about education for Virginians, it becomes far more a community process, and they received social license to operate. Amazon is a great example of what not to do and what to do. And there are many examples of social license to operate, and it's something that's increasingly coming up to becoming important to the energy sector, and they're getting better and better at it. So with that, I just have a short PowerPoint, and then I want to open up a conversation. So in summary, social license to operate is a concept is a tool that's increasingly being used by the energy sector. It means meaningful participatory community engagement. Back in the day in the 1980s, we had the 3 I's, and I'm always going to forget this: invite, inform, and ignore. You know, you had all these people, you put some kind of really big issue on the table, and then you have hundreds of people in the room, you've got one microphone, and everyone's allowed to speak 1 minute in front of that microphone, and everyone's going to say, yep, we had public participation. Well, that doesn't work very well. You know, all you do is have hundreds of people who are even more frustrated. So meaningful participatory community engagement really means people working together. This is going to take a while. That's okay. But you come up with solutions that meet as many interests as possible for the corporations that are taking the financial risks, for the communities, for education, for all kinds of sectors. In some cases, it really should be the first tool to reach out for, and in the long run will be worth every penny. And if you're interested in more about this, this is the article that my colleagues and I have published in the Public Land and Resources Law Review. So if you want to learn more about it, there it is.